art and culture during post-Mauryan time period. Like in every class, if we talk about art and culture during post-Mauryan time period, we have to talk about what has happened earlier also. Because in this particular time period, everything is not going to take birth. Many elements which started earlier, they are just going to continue. First you make a India map, then when it comes to any time period, always you should have geographic location. Otherwise, whatever we are saying will not apply for every geographic location of India. In Northwest, something is happening. In Gangetic Valley, something happens. In Deccan, something happens. In Deep South, something else happens. In Northeast, something is going to happen. That is why we cannot simply say that whatever element that is there in post-Mauryan time period, that applies to every part of Indian subcontinent. Always, even today also, we talk about regional dimensions or the federalism. Why this concept of federalism emerged? This is because of the regional variations. And you will keep seeing these regional variations throughout our history, because our subcontinent is very vast, very large. In that large area, always you will find the regional cultures, because so many mountains are there, desert is there, rivers are there. These physical boundaries are going to create cultural boundaries as well. They are going to create cultural boundaries as well. That is why always we should keep in mind in which geographic location what is happening. And with respect to prelims also, more questions are coming in this angle only. Earlier they were asking like major empires, Mauryan Empire, Gupta Empire, Delhi Sultanate and Mughals. But now UPSC prelims as well as mains, both in optional mains as well as GS mains, now focus is going more towards these regional variations, because that is also part of Indian history and Indian culture. Let us draw the map. Start drawing map along with me. Post-Mauryan, we are talking about 200 BC to 300 AD. In this time period, now, it is not a centralized administration. Multiple kingdoms are there. Below it, you draw this also. timeline. We are, let us say, 200 BC to 300 AD. This is Post-Mauryan. 321 BC, Mauryan period. Next, 600 BC, Mahajanapadas. 1000 BC, later Vedic period. 1500 BC, early Vedic period, and before that, prehistoric or proto-historic period. And after 300, 550 AD, Gupta period. Both in mains as well as prelims, only if you have this idea, you can answer the questions very correctly. Nowadays, they are not giving even choice also. You cannot eliminate options also. That's why you should have very good command over art and culture. Now, coming to this, when it comes to Mauryan, we have almost entire Indian subcontinent came under single authority. But after Mauryan Empire, different regions came under different kingdoms. But culturally, they are unified. For here, Greeks were there for some time. Then Shakas came, they pushed them. Shakas reached till here. Here, Shatavahanas. Here, Kharavela, Kalinga region. And here, Sangam kingdoms. When it comes to here, Shungas, Kanvas. In addition to that, here, so much big empire was controlled by Kushanas. In this particular time period, these many rulers were there. And often, their territory coincides with the neighboring territory. That's why always conflicts used to take place. Between these two conflicts, and we don't have much references, but within Sangam kingdoms, Chola, Chera, Pandya, they used to fight among themselves. Sangam literature clearly mentioned that. And here both used to fight. On one hand, this struggle for territory is going on. Even though politically divided, but culturally this land is unified. That is the biggest strength of Indian subcontinent. So many kingdoms came, so many invasions took place. Despite that, the culture is intact. Whatever new element comes, it becomes very naturally integrate with the old traditions. That is why we are not missing the old traditions, and at the same time, we are not missing the new traditions also. It's a very mixture, right mixture. Once anyone comes to this part, they become part and parcel of Indian traditions. Now here, Khyber Pass, Bolan Pass, and here Vindhyas, Western Ghats, and so many rivers. In order to understand art and culture, we need to have very good idea about this, because our art and culture talks about these regional variations. Please note down up to here. Please let me know if it is done. All of you have drawn this?
Yes, sir.
Done. Okay. Now, coming to this part, when it comes to art and culture, we have some elements. What we are going to deal with this? Religion is what we are going to study as part of art and culture. Then literature. Most of the literature throughout our history inspired by this religion. In our Indian culture, whether literature, whether it is sculpture, whether it is music, most of these elements are inspired by the religious ideology, religious philosophy, literature. Then sculpture, then architecture, religion, literature, sculpture, architecture. As the time progresses, we are going to see music, many things. But in different time periods, different segments of art and culture flourished. At some point of time, religious ideas flourish. At some point of time, literature flourish. At some point of time, sculpture and architecture flourish. In certain periods, some of these elements will flourish. Some of the elements will not get that kind of attention. But in Indian culture, all these elements will keep continuing. One by one, we are going to see. First, you give the heading, religion during post-Mauryan time period. In order to understand religion, we have to see this one, geography and timeline. Always in history, these two are fundamental. Once you get command over this, then rest of the elements, just you need to apply, just to think about what happened in different time periods, you will get the answer. Religion. during post-Mauryan period. Now to understand religion, what kind of religions are there between 200 BC to 300 AD? Now it is not a sudden development. We have to know what kind of religions were there before 300. Now how to find it? Before 200 BC, already many religions are there. When we go to this, before 2000 BC, if you remember, just recollect, Ashoka patronized Buddhism. That means Buddhism is there. Chandragupta Maurya patronized Jainism. Jainism is also there. And Ajivaka sect, both Ashoka and his grandson, they donated certain caves, Barabar caves, Nagarjuni Hills caves, were donated to Ajivaka sect. Ajivaka is also there. And if we come back to before 600 BC, Vedic traditions are going on. Now they are going to take a different form, but these are going to continue. Now come to this, when it comes to religion. Vedic religion started here, and this religion will continue. In 600 to 300, Buddhism emerges, Jainism emerges. Both Buddhism, Jainism continues in both Buddhism and Jainism continues in the next time period. Buddhism, Jainism, Ajivika, Charvaka. So many philosophies are emerging in this point of time. Now within Vedic religion, Upanishadic thought also emerged within Vedic religion. Upanishadic thought started questioning the rituals, and Upanishadic thought inspired these, and they also started questioning. Gradually, when more and more people patronized Buddhism and Jainism, they emerged as separate religions. Now, by post-Mauryan time period, they are going to show dominance gradually. Meanwhile, Vedic religion also going to transform. Earlier, when it comes to Rigvedic period, certain gods like Rudra, Vishnu, they were very minor. When it comes to major, Agni, Indra, Agni, Varuna, they are the powerful. When it comes to later Vedic time period, those deities minimized, and Vishnu, Rudra started gaining, Brahma, Prajapati. Now these small deities, they are going to play major role in post-Mauryan time period. And you can see it as a response to the growth of popularity of Buddhism and Jainism also. Now it comes in the form of both Buddhism continues, Jainism continues, and when it comes to Vedic, now it is going to take turn. You can simply consider, suppose, early Hinduism, because Hinduism is a very big term. And in this early Hinduism, Vaishnavism, Shaivism, Shaktiism, and on top of it, Yaksha, Yakshini, Naga, and all these are going to see in this time period. Early Hinduism. Now all these were part of. Okay, is it? Mm-hmm.
ask the question to so I take about that Vaishnavism was never wanted to associate themselves with the Hindus.
Mm-hmm.
What is the view upon this? So this was I was reading in relation with that English studies son has said something about religion.
Mm-hmm.
So I was reading an article about scientific and there I was also shocked that because Hinduism the most important two gods are Vishnu and Shiva, but these two sects are not associated, one being associated with modern prevailing Hinduism.
Probably they might be talking earlier Vaishnavism, Shaivism are two different set of ideals. And gradually, all these streams merged into one stream, what we call Sanatan Dharma, or the latest. In fact, the term Hinduism, the term Hindu, by this time you already know that Persians, they started giving the geographic location name. But the term Hinduism, like Christianity, Islam, Hinduism was first time coined by Raja Ram Mohan Rai. That means 1800s. And thereafter it gained the popularity. But exactly when it comes to Hinduism, it is completely different in comparison with Islam, Hinduism, or other Buddhism also. If you take Islam, or if you take Christianity, if you take Buddhism, there is a founder. There is a person, and that person started giving certain kind of ideals, code of conduct, and that code of conduct followed by the followers. But when it comes to Hinduism, there is no such a single person who started a religion called Hinduism. That is why this is even till now also debates are going on. Since ancient times, the term Hindu applies to the area beyond Sindhu River. That is why the debate goes on like whoever resides in this part is a Hindu. If someone says, the other religions may get offended. But in ancient times, that is what the description given by the neighboring empire, Persian Empire. Because when it comes to later post in medieval times and later in British time period, there was continuous debate between these religions. And people, we don't have even much evidence also. At that time only archaeological departments are emerging. So many texts, they were lost in our history, they were coming back. Even in fact, Ardhashastra also we don't know till 1900s, it was recovered. So many things are happening in 1900s and 2000s. That is why gradually our idea about our past also changing. But in 1900 and 1800, these concepts they were trying to see in a silos. Different religions are different aspects, and at the same time there is other thought that all religions are saying the same truth. Both type of ideologies are parallelly going throughout our history. At this point of time in post-Mauryan time period, Buddhism dominant, Jainism continuing, we cannot call Hinduism as such, but later what is going to be Hinduism? Those elements like Vaishnavism, Shaktiism and Shaivism, Yaksha, Yakshini, Nagas, they are separate ideologies. Within, we call them Puranic Hinduism. That's why the term Hinduism itself is a very complex one, very difficult to define also. Early Hinduism, Puranic Hinduism, or Brahmanical Hinduism, Brahmanical religion, you can give different names, but all these ideas, in simple terms, Vaishnavism, Shaktiism and Shaivism, they emerged from the original Vedic thought. That's why they associate with Vedic religion. So Vedic religion you call, early Hinduism you call, Puranic Hinduism you call, they are the elements. But Yaksha, Yakshini, Nagas, they are the tribal identities, because now when it comes to this, you see, before Vedic itself, we have so many tribals. And these ideas are continuing. And during Mauryan time period also, there were forests and there were tribal people. Their ideas are different. During Mahajanapada time period, forests are there, tribal people are there, ideas are different. Guptas also, same, even today also, it is the same condition. It mixes Buddhism and tribal freely mix, Jainism and tribal freely mix, and Hinduism and tribal started mixing. And in fact, there was one interpretation is there was continuous competition among Buddhism, particularly Buddhism and Hindu Brahmanical tradition, to recruit more tribals or to enter into to spread more Buddhism or to spread Hinduism to new areas. As a result, what happens? Some of the tribal identities or the religious ideas incorporated in the Puranic tradition to accommodate them in this particular ideology. This is what these complex dynamics are going on in post-Mauryan time period. This is very, very important to understand this region because later these are going to become very, very consolidated and they are going to take a different shape. It's going to, in Gupta time period, it's going to be inspired from the post-Mauryan time period. So-called whatever the Hindu ideals or the Hindu ideas, different images, gods, goddesses, all these concepts started emerging from post-Mauryan time period onwards. And hereafter, next in Gupta, post-Gupta, medieval and post-medieval time period, we are going to see the representation of these ideas in one form or the other form. They are represented, that is the religious thought, that is going to be represented in literature and in sculpture, in architecture, in form of music and paintings. But these are the fundamental ideas, they are started taking the shape in post-Mauryan time period. It's very, very crucial, this post-Mauryan time period is a very, very important timeline that it has taken completely different shape comparing with the previous timeline and it is going to become a bedrock foundation for the later time period till today. Please try to understand this. Now we have to see in which geographic locations, which religions or which religious thoughts are more dominant. That is what next we have to see. Please ask me if you have any doubt up to here. Any doubts? Anubhav, Kanchan, Sanju? Anyone? If you have any doubt, please ask me. Very, very crucial this point. Now we are going to apply these ideas in which locations are more dominant. Now you make a India map. We are going to show these religions. Now these are the few religions which I showed. Now on top of it, we are going to see some other elements also. Now you make a proper India map. This India map will give complete idea that which location is more dominant. These ideals are still inspiring. Now there are some other religions which are minor, not dominant, but still existent at this point of time. In post-Mauryan period, there is no Islam. Islam is about to emerge in this geographic location, 600 plus. Now, Madura, Vidisha, Sangam. When it comes to Sangam, local god called Murugan is very dominant deity of Sangam people. Now Madura is associated with Krishna, Bhagavatism, there are multiple names, Vasudeva cult, in Vidisha, Heliodorus, Base Nagar, pillar inscription talks about Heliodorus accepted Bhagavatism. He himself considered as a Bhagavata, follower of Bhagavatism, Krishna cult. Shakas, Shaivism, for example, Rudradaman. The name itself is indicating Rudra, Shaivism. And when it comes to this location, Kharavela, he patronized Jainism. And here Kanishka, he convened 4th Buddhist Council. Fourth Buddhist Council. You can see Buddhism in this location, Jainism in this location, Vaishnavism in this location, Shaivism in this location, and they are going to influence all parts of India. And you can see this tradition that the continuous interaction between now Aryan world and Sangam world. Sangam deities were incorporated in Puranic tradition. Markandeya Purana or Shiva Purana, Puranas, they talk about Murugan is a son of Shiva. So Shiva comes from here and Murugan comes. This interaction, Aryan world accepts these ideals and Sangam world accepts Aryan world. Freely mixing. Throughout our history, that is what is going to happen. If someone says we don't have, we have complete isolation, that is not the reality. That's only for political purpose to create some disturbances. Otherwise, truly, culturally, no one is separate when it comes to the Indian subcontinent. In one way or the other way, I influence your religion, your influence influences me. Automatic. That much historical evidence we don't have. Unless it is accepted naturally by the most number of people, only we can understand that would not have survived. If it is a forced one, it would not have survived. Unless it is very peaceful integration, unless large scale people accepted that idea. This one. And when it comes to this part, Shatavahanas, they performed Ashwamedha sacrifices. Vedic religion. And here, Shungas, Pushyamitra Shunga also performed Ashwamedha sacrifice. Now you see, Vedic sacrifices also emerged. Vedic deities took a different turn. Bhagavatism, Shaivism. And in Madura region, we also see Shakti tradition. Shakti, Lakshmi. Now, this is also the period trading activities are going on. Different traders, merchants, they are becoming very powerful and more wealthy because of Silk Road trade and Roman Empire trade. They were patronizing all types of religions. They were giving donations to Buddhism also. They were giving donations to Bhagavatism also, Shaivism also, Jainism also. And different rulers also started patronizing different ideologies. That's why this particular time period has seen the progress of all religions. And here so many prelims questions are also there. Heliodorus pillar, Kharavela, Hathikumpa inscription, and Shatavahanas patronizing the Vedic religion. So likewise many questions, Rudradaman, Shakas, Shaivism, and also Junagadh inscription. Hathikumpa inscription here, Junagadh inscription here. When it comes to Shatavahanas, Naneghat inscription, Nashik inscription. So many. Fourth Buddhist Council, Kanishka. Many prelims questions are also there. And when it comes to our mains question, religious developments during post-Mauryan, you have to find all these. These are the dominant one. On top of it, minor one, Zoroastrianism influences. And Christianity also comes to all the way through Saint Thomas, minor one. Judaism also is there. Greek gods also dominates in this location. Greeks. Because these are the fundamental philosophies. Now these philosophies are going to influence literature, sculpture, architecture, everything. But we have to understand the religion first. Up to here, all of you have written? Please note down up to here. Then we will go to literature part. These are the religions. Just we will mention a list of religious ideas, then we will go to the literature. Please let me know if it is done. Just make a list of it, that's it. List of religious ideas. Buddhism, or if you come from Puranic Hinduism, Vaishnavism, Shaivism, Shaktism, Buddhism. And when it comes to Buddhism, by this time period, within Buddhism also, Mahayana Buddhism, the other became Hinayana. In every religious ideology, you are going to see the split. In Islam, Shia and Sunni. In Christianity, Catholics, Protestants. In Buddhism, Mahayana, Hinayana. And in Hinduism, now these many things. There is no end to that.
Actually, all the religions have more than two, but these two actually became more popular than the others. That's why
Exactly. There were even more number of sects. But these are the powerful and more people accepted it. That's why we are knowing about them. But in fact, there were so many. Jainism, Digambaras, and Shvetambaras. Again, Digambaras and Shvetambaras. And when it comes to these are the mainstream religions, the other thoughts, Yaksha and Yakshani. Tribal ideas, but these Yaksha and Yakshani you will find in Jainism also, you will find in Buddhism also, you will find in Hinduism, Puranic Hinduism also. And you include one more, Naga cult. Again, you will find Naga images in Jainism also, Buddhism also, Puranic tradition also. You can see this freely interaction with these mainstream. In addition to that, Zoroastrianism, then Greek gods, Christianity, Judaism. Judaism means Jewish. We don't know exactly which timeline, but around 500 BC, when Buddha was roaming here, and Jews also started migrating to different locations. And how do we know that when Saint Thomas came to Kerala, Jewish Gaul invited Saint Thomas? That means Jewish must be there, Judaism must be there. Which one? Saint Thomas?
Post-Mauryan period, 200 BC to 300 AD,
Hmm.
that period, will Christianity came to in the company or was it?
Yes, around 50-60 AD. Immediately after the death of Jesus. Jesus died in around 30-35 AD. That is why common era. Why we are saying this common era? Jesus is the reference. And when it comes to Jesus, this what? Suppose 100, common era. That is after 100 years after Jesus. Our timeline itself is taken from the Jesus only. Now, around 30 AD, Jesus died. Around 30-35, Jesus. Now, after that, his own disciples started spreading the ideology, gospel of Jesus. One saint, Saint Thomas, he came to India. That is around maybe immediately like 50 to 60 somewhere. Because he visited Gondopharnus also. Near Gondopharnus, Parthian ruler was there in northwest. He visited there and he came down to Kerala. So within 1st century itself, Christianity also reached. So within 1st century AD itself, Christianity also reached immediately. And India is always open to that. In fact, Islam also, during the time period of Prophet Muhammad himself, Islam also reached India. It touched the shores of, it did not touch the northwestern parts first. It touched the Kerala only. Because geographically, already these areas are already well connected. Trade route was always there. Before Islam also trade route was there. And even before the rise of Zoroastrianism also trade routes were there, Harappa and Mesopotamians. This geography always connected. And whenever some new development takes place here, it automatically reaches. When someone is coming from this location, they bring their ideas also. Similarly, when someone is going from here, always these people also take new ideas there. That is why Hinduism is dominant in Southeast Asia through traders. When Indians are going there and they influenced that particular area. That's why even today also, even though Islam is the main followers are there, but still Hindu ideas and names are very common. Indonesia and all. This Southeast Asia all connected. So this side also connected, this side also connected. Indian ideas are influencing them, their ideas are also influencing India. This is because of the geographic location, natural interaction. That's why in the 1st century itself, in the early stages of any new religion, it reaches the shores of India. And Judaism also like that, Christianity also like that, later Islam also like that, Greek gods, Zoroastrianism. And we can consider these are very minor, but these are the major ones, competition, and these are the so many ideals are there. Some religions got the patronage, they became very powerful. Because Buddhism is lucky enough to get an emperor like Ashoka, and he made it very big. And later Hinduism, like Guptas patronized, Shatavahanas patronized, and it became very powerful later. That is why, when whatever appeals to the rulers, whatever appeals to the public, and rulers also going to take those religions which appeals to the most number of people. In that way, in one or the other form, they are sustaining, and even today also we are having these similar traditions. List of religious ideas. Now come to literature. Now literature is more or less inspired by these elements only. Literature. Next heading, literature during Post-Mauryan, 200 BC to 300 AD. All right. Now, separately, small India maps you need to make. Then only we can easily understand. Suppose when it comes to Brahmanical religion or Puranic tradition, and literature and language go together. Brahmanical text. Now, when it comes to Brahmanical text, now we'll see this. How previous generation influences the present generation. Brahmanical text, the language is Sanskrit. And now we are going to talk some text before Post-Mauryan also, because that influences the Post-Mauryan literature. What is the first grammar in Sanskrit? Who was the person who gave the grammar systematically for the first time? Panini. What is the geographic location of Panini? Takshila region. Okay? In this region, around 450 BC. Around 450 BC, Panini. Book name is Ashtadhyayi. It was the grammar. Not required. And in fact, just Panini Ashtadhyayi, that itself is enough for prelims point of view. And for mains, hardly we are going to mention Panini Ashtadhyayi. Yes, very good. Ashtadhyayi. Panini. This is Sanskrit. Up to here, now we are in 450 BC. 450 means Mahajanapada time period. And in a later Vedic and early Vedic time period, language is Sanskrit, but they were not writing. Only oral tradition. Rig Veda was composed in oral, and later Vedas also composed orally, but it was not written. And for the first time, Panini gave a systematic grammar to Sanskrit language, and thereafter we are going to see different literature. And initially, even the earliest surviving manuscripts around from Gupta time period only we are seeing. The language, whatever the Sanskrit language, it was established somewhere here grammar. Now this grammar is going to influence this period and this period and this period. And most of all these ideas, particularly Puranic ideas and Puranic tradition, during Gupta time period, they were put to writing properly. This was also the time, golden period for Sanskrit literature. Kalidasa has written, and Puranas took the final shape. Mahabharata, Ramayana took the final shape. The kind of language they were using, that was the final development during Gupta time period. That is why Gupta period is also called classical age. Why we call classical age? Because that is the pinnacle or the zenith of the development of a particular language or literature. That is why Gupta time period is also called classical age when it comes to Sanskrit literature. But the roots are here. When it comes to orally, from 1500 onwards, oral tradition is going on. Now gradually grammar came, Panini. Now after Panini, during Post-Mauryan time period, there was one sage, Patanjali. Patanjali, he is a contemporary to Pushyamitra Shunga. And problem here with our history and with our own people is, we don't know exactly in which location they are living. Pataliputra or Vidisha, we don't know. Because Pataliputra was the capital of Mauryans. And when it comes to Post-Mauryans or Shungas, when they captured Mauryan Empire, sometimes we get the evidence, it seems they are very powerful in this location also, but they captured the power here also. That is why we don't know, but this is the Shunga Empire, and in this Shunga Empire, Patanjali was there. And Patanjali has written commentary on this. Commentary on Panini's Ashtadhyayi. What is the book name? Mahabhashya. Commentary on Panini's Ashtadhyayi. So this shows the evidence that how the previous generation influences the present generation. It was written somewhere in 450 BC. Now he is living in 1st century or 2nd century, or he is writing in 2nd century BC. That means almost after 200 years, you can say. So it is like 1857 revolt happened how many years ago? 1857? 150 years. Now we are going to see after 50 more years, 200 years of 1857 revolt. Now if someone inspired by those events and they can write 1857 revolt about a book. And in fact, V.D. Savarkar, he called the first war of independence after 50 years of 1857 revolt. 1857 is the revolt and 1907. 1907 means 50 years. These 50 years inspired so many freedom fighters. That is why in 1900 and 1910s, you will find many revolutionary activities. In Maharashtra, V.D. Savarkar, Gadar movement, also in that during First World War. And during particularly that time period is 1857 revolt is inspiring them. After 50 years, Indians youth got inspired that 50 years ago our Indians fought against British. Now it is our time to fight against the British. We don't know at what point of time inspires which person. That's why now 450 he has written. After 200 years, Patanjali has written Mahabhashya. And this tradition is going to be common. Someone is going to write a commentary after 300 years. Someone is going to write a commentary after 500 years, 1000 years also. That is why epics like Mahabharata, Ramayana, the same theme continues for next 2000 years. This is one thing now. And we don't know in which location they wrote. Exactly we don't know where Puranas are also written. But around this time period, Puranas were written. The same Puranas talk about Shungas also, Shatavahanas also, Mauryans also.
Puranas don't they speak about the Mauryans and Shunga dynasty and all those, but they take them as Barbarians, as demons, in a very detailed breakdown. Only this text is like only the inscriptions of this rulers and they just appreciate each other. But in Puranas they have written the people who wrote Puranas, they have written very detailed things about this Shunga dynasty and all other dynasties at that time who had fallen. So why was it like that? How did the kings allow that? Because those times you write against the king and you have your head cut.
Okay. But that's why Puranas were not written in single day, single person. These are the stories. Initially they start with oral tradition. And after some time, a person who listened to all these stories will compile. There were so many Puranas. Some Puranas particularly talk about Vishnu. But that will not develop in a single day. So many stories will be there. And a person will go and collect all the stories related to Vishnu and compile in a book. Then again Shiva also, same thing. Shakti also, same. Garuda, same thing. So many Puranas are there. And these Purana, initially oral tradition starts and later started compiling. But the tradition of Puranas also emerged in this point. Next one. Dharma Shastras. Dharma Shastras also written during this time period. When it comes to Dharma Shastras, there are three types are there. Sutra literature, Smriti literature, commentaries. Combinedly, we call Sutra literature, Smriti literature and commentaries combinedly we call Dharma Shastras. And these Dharma Shastras, it's not a single book and they were not written in single day. Single time period also. For example, Sutra literature, it started in later Vedic time period, that is Mahajanapada time period. Dharma Sutra, Griha Sutra, like that Sutra. When it comes to Smriti, Manu Smriti, Yajnavalka Smriti, Narada Smriti, we are going to see many smritis. And on these smritis and sutras, some commentaries also going. Commentaries like this. Like someone has written grammar and Patanjali has written this commentary on previous book. Similarly, commentaries on previous traditions. Combinedly, they call Dharma Shastras, and some of these Dharma Shastras also written during this composed, during this time period. Sanskrit literature. This is Brahmanical texts. And now, same Sanskrit is considered as the major language for Vedic tradition. But by this time, Sanskrit is gaining more and more popularity. Because Patanjali, Shunga period dynasty patronized, and here Shatavahanas also patronized Sanskrit. Gradually, initially Prakrit was the official language of Shatavahanas. Later, it is going to be replaced by Sanskrit. Now, more and more popularity is gaining Sanskrit. Now, Buddhism also inspired by this. And Buddhism also inspired from Sanskrit and Ashwagosha.
From this type of the good thing is to sir, we can become the golden age that I missed that period in the class after I was reading about it.
Okay.
After I don't know if it's Marxist who established the Gupta dynasty because Gupta patronized things or was it really because I did not read the Puranas like that. I just read only Marxist Puran and also that creator. So I don't know the severity of it. Right? I can understand that if it's partial or if it's not.
Multiple interpretations.
Because
As time changes, interpretation also will keep changing. Then, do you remember any one particular work of Ashwagosha? He has written a history of Buddha itself. Buddha Charita. Saundaranandana. Ashwagosha. Now you see, Buddhism also inspired from the Sanskrit. Yes, whatever principle it opposed, now itself is accepting it. So that is what change. And that is why split in the Buddhism also. Those who accepted Sanskrit, this became Mahayana, and those who opposed this tradition, they remained Hinayana tradition. So some people within Buddhism wanted to accept the new trend. So it is Sanskrit is a new trend, and now image worship is a new trend. And some Buddhists wanted to follow the new trend. Some wanted to restrict it to the old tradition only. Prakrit. Sanskrit is that. Now come to Prakrit. There was a ruler called Hala in Satavahanas. And he wrote Ghada Saptasati. He wrote Gada Saptasati. And inscriptions. Prakrit inscriptions like Nashik, Naneghat, Hathi Gumpa. These inscriptions are also written in Prakrit. You can see, observe this, so many points for both mains point of view as well as prelims point of view. Many questions are there. Prakrit language, Sanskrit language, Tamil. Tamil is also in Sangam. Sangam literature. Pattupatu, and I will give the names. Tokapiyam, grammar of Sanskrit, like Sanskrit grammar, Tamil grammar also comes. Grammar, Tolkapiyam. And broadly, Tamil literature is divided into spelling Ettu Tokai, broadly Tamil. These are the foundation for the Tamil literature. And out of Ettu Tokai, Ettu means 8. Out of this 6 out of 8 and 9 out of 10. Pattu means 10. Ettu means 8. Pattu means 10. Out of 8, 6 belongs to Sangam age, and out of 10, 9 belongs to Sangam period. And when it comes to this grammar, Tokapiyam, earlier part, also belong to Sangam age. When it comes to Sangam period, this we consider 300 BC to 300 AD. So within these 600 years, earlier parts of Tolkapiyam were written during this time period. Out of 8, 6 in this were written during this time period. Out of 10, 9 were written during this time period. Later, some included in this part. Some inscriptions are also there. Brahmi Tamil inscription we call. Brahmi Tamil inscription. And it is considered as the first recorded evidence of Tamil. Because again, problem is, like Vedas, they composed orally. Sangam literature also initially oral composition only. Later they were put to write. Because it is not very easy to recollect or easy to record properly. It happened 2000, 3000 years ago. And at least surviving at least this much also greatness about Indian history. Because in other cultures, what has happened 2000, 3000 years ago, that was completely eradicated, eliminated. We don't know in what happened to, in the later historian time period, what happened to them. But at least in India, at least some of them are still surviving. Through them only we are able to understand something has happened in our history 1000, 2000, 3000 years ago. This is what the uniqueness of this Indian subcontinent geography. Prakrit language, Tamil language. These are the major dominant languages: Sanskrit, Prakrit, and Tamil language. Now, gradually, slowly, after post-Mauryan time period, we are going to see the foundation of local languages, like some Telugu inscription, Kannada inscription, and Marathi. They are also coming from Prakrit, Ardhamagadi. There are many other variants also. Then, there was one book, particularly you write this, because it inspired other authors. One book called Brihad Kada. Brihat Kada by Gunadhya. Brihat Kada by Gunadhya. And the language is Paisachi language. We don't know exactly in which location he has written, but Satavahana history talks about a person, Gunadhya was there, and he has written this Brihat Kada. The legend says, now by this time period, Sanskrit is influencing more. Prakrit is earlier royal inscriptions, Ashoka inscriptions, Prakrit. Earlier, Satavahana's official language is also Prakrit. Now, gradually Sanskrit is dominating. Now, there was conflict between Sanskrit and Prakrit. So, this is very common. Like when something is there, when new element will come, initially conflict is to take place. And later both will adapt. Similarly, like Hinduism or Vedic Brahmanism and Buddhism, they fight. And after some time, same Sanskrit adopted by the Buddhism. And same Buddhist ideals adopted by the Brahmanism. And one interpretation is the truth and non-violence, particularly non-violence of Buddhism and Jainism adapted by Brahmanical tradition that emerged in the form of Bhagavatism. Buddhist Jataka stories, it talks about so many birth stories of Buddhism and inspired the Dashavatara concept of Brahmanical tradition. And one of the Dashavatara, Buddha also included in one of the Dashawataras in some of the traditions. Dasharatha Jataka. Now you see, initially Buddhism against the rituals. That's why we should not portray it as complete against a particular ideology. They are against the evils of that particular ideology. Indians were fighting against the British Empire. It doesn't mean we are hating the British. We did not hate the British. We were hating the policies of the British. That's why many Indians are settling in London and many Europeans settled in India. After independence, there is no harm. After independence, many Europeans still settled. That's why 2 MP seats allocated to Anglo-Indians. Why that 2 seats given in the parliament? Because all Europeans did not go from India. So many people were there and they made India as their home. And where would they go once they took India as their home? And to the Indo-European community, already 2 representation should be there. That's why 2 Anglo-Indian seats are also allocated in the British Indian Parliament. That shows that we did not throw every European out of India. As long as evils are there, we were against. Similarly, Buddhism also, they were not against the Brahman. Otherwise, why Upanishadic ideas taken by Buddha? And Buddha, he himself has undergone all the Vedic tradition in his childhood. Ashrama Dharma, Brahmacharya and Grihastha. During Brahmacharya, Buddha was taken training in all these Vedic Vedas only. Later, he did not like some of the elements. That's why he reformed. And after that, Sanskrit Buddhist people also accepted Sanskrit, and Upanishad they always influenced it. Same is the case with Jainism also. Many Jaina stories contains references to Vedic tradition. So similarly, Buddhism and Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism and Brahmanical tradition mix easily. And now Sanskrit and Prakrit emerged. Now this legend says, one day the ruler of Shatavahana ruler wanted to learn Sanskrit. But he wanted to learn Sanskrit within 6 months. So within 6 months, Gunadhya said, Sanskrit is a very big one, you cannot learn in 6 months, otherwise the purity of Sanskrit will go, he said. Then there is other opposite person and he said, he will teach the ruler in 6 months. And now this person felt offended, he went to forest and he started writing Brihat Kada. Now after writing this book, he come back to king and he showed this. But king was very angry because king rule was violated by him. That's why king told him that Brihat Kada should be burnt. And again, how far it is true is we don't know. But now why I am saying this, like Megasthenes Indica, we don't have the original Megasthenes Indica. It was lost. It was fragments, and those stories we are recollecting from the Roman authors, later Roman authors. Similarly, this Brihat Kada also, original Brihat Kada lost, but this Brihat Kada inspired so many Indian authors, and now this happened during Post-Mauryan period, but inspires people like in 10th century also. So this tradition continues for after 1000 years also, these stories, and people like Kada Sarish Sagara, and this was already asked in our UPSC prelims also. The person name is the timeline also problematic. 11th century collection. In 11th century, there was an author called Somadeva, and he has written a book called Kada Sarit Sagara. Kada Sarit Sagara Brihat Kada. So through this, because they have reference that based on Gunadhya's Brihat Kada, they have written Kada Sarit Sagara. Through them, we are coming to know that there was a book called Brihat Kada that belongs to Post-Mauryan period. This was already asked in prelims also. Be careful in understanding this. Which one? He is from, I think, Kashmir region. Just a second, let me. Kashmir. Now you understand? Somewhere in Deccan, this was written. Now the Deccan story survived in Kashmir also after so many centuries also. So this is how our Indian, culture-wise, our Indian always interconnected. Politically fragmentation, politically fight, but when it comes to culture, unified. Today also we find the same story. We watch all the Bollywood movies watched by everyone, but when it comes to Hindi opposition, people will oppose Hindi. So Tamil movies are South Indian movies very popular in North, but again, North Indian people may not learn about South Indian languages. So culturally, one time, these extremes or the opposition is always be there. What you call the contradictions. The same person, we talk about this end also, we talk about this end also. We don't know where we are. The contradictions are very, very common to our Indian history, whether it is today, whether it is earlier. You oppose Brahmanism, but you oppose in Brahmanism in Sanskrit. So that is what very, very common tradition in our India. And on one hand, you will praise women like great Shakti, everyone, the sort of energy everywhere. But when you treat your home, then you treat women in a different way. So when you come out, you will praise. But when you go home, you will treat in a different way. So likewise, we have always these contradictions. Same Puranas talk about one end, and the same Purana talks about the other end also. On one hand, Manusmriti or the Smritis, they support Varna system. The same Smriti also says these are only theoretical. Practically, it should be followed whatever is best interest of the state. Then on one hand you are supporting, on one hand you are not supporting. And how rulers, they follow themselves. So that is how always these kind of contradictions are very, very common in our tradition. Sanju, not audible? Hello, not audible? Hello? Is it audible now, Sanju? Anubhav? Hello? Hello? Now audible?
Yes, sir.
All right. You see this? Brihat Katha written during Post-Mauryan inspired later periods also in the form of Panchatantra during Gupta time period. After Gupta time period also in the form of Kada Sarisagara. These stories inspires directly or indirectly. This is the one. Next. Prakrit. This is with respect to literature. Next, we have in Buddhism, we have Nagasena and Menander, Milinda Panha. By Nagasena. Book name is Milinda Panha. It was by Nagasena and Menander. It is, Menander was a Greek king and he was having some doubts. He was asking about Buddhism to Nagasena. Nagasena was asking. Nagasena answering, Menander was questioning. So it is like question and answer format. Whatever questions Menander was having, Nagasena tried to answer them. This question and answers were composed in Milinda Panha. This is one. This is with respect to the foreigners. And Junagadh inscription. It was given by Shakas, Rudradaman. It was the first pure Sanskrit inscription. Now you see foreigners accepting this way of life, Buddhist way of life and Sanskrit way of life. And when it comes to science and tech literature, Charaka Samhita, Charaka Samhita. These are important. And when it comes to Buddhism, Jataka stories are also written during this time period. You mentioned that also. Buddhism, Jataka stories. Prakrit. Prakrit language. But they were adapted to Sanskrit also, combination. Prakrit and Sanskrit, because it was not written single year or single person. Many multiple stories, multiple regions were there. Some Sanskrit, some Prakrit, but Prakrit is the main one. This is one with respect to literature. Now you see, religion only inspiring. Religion inspires the literature also. Next one, sculpture. Next view the heading, sculpture. For this, you need to mention the locations. Sculpture, Puranic Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, then within Puranic tradition, you can mention all these: Vishnu, Shiva, Shakti. This is with respect to religious and secular sculpture, like images of rulers. Religion also inspires in sculptures, and secular is sculpture also. Now, here, Madura, Amaravati, Gandhara. Due to influence of foreign elements, Gandhara sculpture, Madura sculpture, Amaravati school of art. And all these three have elements of religion also, secular also. Three schools of art. First one, Gandhara. Gandhara school of art inspired by Indian elements, Greek elements, Zoroastrian elements. Greco-Roman, Central Asian, and Indian. Elements: Zoroastrianism, Parisian elements. Second one, Madura. When it comes to Madura, more Indian influence, less of foreign influence. Third one, Amaravati. When it comes to Amaravati, more indigenous Indian. Madura, mix but more of Indian. Three schools of art: Gandhara school, Madura school of art, Amaravati school of art. Now, what are the themes of Gandhara, Madura, Amaravati means? Here, when it comes to Gandhara, major theme is Buddhism. And when it comes to Madura, Buddhism also there, Jainism also there, Hinduism also there. And in Amaravati, mostly Buddhism. And when it comes to the raw material used by these, it all depends on the kind of natural raw material available to them. So here, white marble, red sandstone, and green schist was utilized. And this I will give you the material, need not to worry. You just understand Gandhara school of art, Madura school of art, and Amaravati school of art. And when it comes to Madura, here Buddhist ideals, Buddha, and here it comes to Buddha, Jaina, kings, and Puranic gods. Here, Buddha. Just mention it. Now, sculpture, you can also include cave architecture. It is also the time caves were constructed in this area. More caves. Ajanta, Karla. So, that you specifically mention, because a separate question can also be asked on cave architecture. And here, when it comes to caves, Deccan part, Ajanta. Near Pune, you have Karla, Baja, Kaniheri. Here, Chaityas and Viharas were constructed. Chaitya is like a temple. Vihara is residential. This is cave tradition. Cave tradition started by Mauryans in Barabar caves, in Bihar region, Barabar, Nagarjuni caves, and that tradition continues here. Now, this is one of the reason. This is Ujjain, and this is Madura, Pataliputra. Now, when they are connected, trade is connected to these areas. When so many merchants, when they are passing through this area, these merchants donated. Merchants donated to religious groups. As a result of this, in Western Ghats, it is very conducive for the caves, and so many caves were constructed during this time period. Next, when it comes to paintings, Ajanta cave paintings are famous. Paintings. Ajanta cave paintings. But Ajanta is one such group. It is not going to stop here. Later, Vakatakas are going to patronize. After Guptas, so it's a continuous tradition from starting from post-Mauryan till end of the Gupta, and sometime after Guptas also, we are going to see paintings in Ajanta. Then Ellora will come later. Ajanta cave paintings. Now, particularly you write about this cave tradition, Hindu temples. Generally, Hindu temples, we often see Gupta time period onwards. But the foundation for Hindu temples also started in this time period. You just mention the monuments, free structure monuments. When it comes to monuments, you have to mention stupas. Sanchi stupa, Barhut. Two important stupas. Then Amaravati. Amaravati stupa. Even near Takshila also. Near Takshila. Stupa monuments we found. And when it comes to Hindu monuments, like a beginning of some kind of temple type of architecture, but just taking place. Nagari in Rajasthan. Nagari in Rajasthan. Sonk, Madura. Besnagar, Heliodorus. Pillar, nearby a small monument, and somewhere here there is a place called Gudimallam. Shiva in Linga format, Shivalinga, Gudimallam. Then Nagarjuna Konda, Nagarjuna Konda. Here, Nagarjuna Konda is important for both Buddhism also, Hinduism also, mixture. Here, Atranjikera. Near Atranjikera also, we find evidence of Hindu architect monuments. They are just beginning of temple type of monuments. But the real large-scale monuments for Hindu elements will come during Gupta time period. And when it comes to Jainism monuments in Udayagiri, Kandagiri caves. Udayagiri, Kandagiri caves related to Jainism. Now you see Buddhism, Jainism and Hinduism. All are getting different literature, rich literary tradition, rich religious tradition and rich monuments also for each and every religion. So many prelims questions are there, and also you just have a look at in what context all these are being developed. Sanju, Kanchan, Anubhav, understood up to here? Have you written this one and the previous slide also clearly?
Yes, sir.
This religious. So you try to see that different religions are there. These different religious ideas are inspiring our art and culture. From Gupta time period onwards, just we are going to recollect all these things. More Puranas are going to write, more Ramayana and Mahabharata epics final shape. After post-Guptas, only regional kingdoms. Same Puranas, same Ramayana, same Mahabharata, they are going to translate to regional languages. And we are going to see who are those poets and who are the rulers who patronized them. But the fundamental theme is same thing only. It is taking the concrete shape. Hinduism also taking concrete shape, Buddhism also concrete shape, Jainism also concrete shape. Their religious monasteries, the final different type of rituals emerged, different type of image worship emerged, different type of the fundamental idea of religion itself more or less focusing goes to bhakti type of tradition, personal worship to the God. That is why these many monuments started emerging in the form of images, monuments, paintings. So with this, art and culture, and last we will do science and technology. Last heading you give, science and technology in post-Mauryan time period. Astronomy and astrology. Astronomy and astrology. More contribution from Greeks. The terms Horashastra, this is Sanskrit term. It came from horoscope. Horoscope, Horashastra, Greek term. This is Greek term. And Greece is Sanskrit. And in Greek mythology, the mythology of Greeks so well developed, and they have so many names for the astronomical elements. For example, most of our solar system, most of these names came from Greek mythology only. The moon, sun, and other planets. And even today, if you discover something new, they used to name Greek mythological names. That inspired Indian. In India also we have tradition, that's why it freely mixed. Metallurgy. Metallurgy. So many coins were given by this time period. Coins. Greeks issued coins, Shakas issued coins, Shatavahanas issued coins. And they issued in gold also, silver also, copper also. Coins. When it comes to steel, iron, these swords are famous. Swords even exported. Woods. In Deccan, from Deccan, in Shatavahana, Karnataka region, iron ores are there, iron mines.
The name of the steel was
Wood steel, yes. It was created at a different high temperatures and it becomes so strong. Woods. Wood swords. Metallurgy. Now. Next one, medicine. Medicine already by this time, Charaka. Charaka Samhita. Aushadhi. Term common for medicine. Aushadhi. Aushadi. Is the term commonly used for medicine. And you have to remember, in Mahajanapada time period, there was a physician, famous physician, Jivaka. He is Charaka. Later, Sushruta will come in Gupta time period. So Jivaka is different. Sushruta is different. Jivaka, Bindusara time period. Sorry, Bimbisara, not Bindusara. And Sushruta is Gupta time period. Charaka. So Jivaka, Charaka, Sushruta, famous physicians of our ancient time period. Military technology. Central Asian techniques reached India. Indians also learned. Usage of stirrup, stability on horse, long boots tradition, next glass making, particularly glass making technique also entered India due to Romans. For wine amphorae, glass is important, glass making process learned. Usage of stirrup, usage of long boots. And this tradition utilized Kushanas brought this. Kushanas brought. And this stirrup and long boots tradition continued by Indian rulers also later. And Guptas initially served under Kushanas, they learned these techniques. And Guptas conquered many territories later. This applies even to the medieval time period. Turkish, Rajput versus Turkish, strength of Turkish people and weakness of Rajputs. So this is about science and technology. Clear? Now in Post-Mauryan we have seen political dimension entire. Always you remember the geographical location and different rulers, administration, then economic condition, social conditions, art and culture, and science and technology. These are the 5 major dimensions of any particular dynasty, any particular time period. Sanju, Kanchan, Anubhav, clear? With this, we are ending post-Mauryan time period.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow we will start Guptas. Guptas we will start. And more or less, whatever points we discussed, same thing is going to repeat. When it comes to literature, same epics, same Puranas, those things, apart from few more names we will get. But structure is almost now, this is from whatever structure we have studied in post-Mauryan, this structure is going to be remain till end of Mughals. With the same structure we are going to study for different times. Okay, from now onwards it will go very fastly. Up to now, it is a formative stage. How society is forming, how economic system is forming, how administration is forming. And hereafter, our next rulers are just going to follow the previous trends. Here and there, some innovative new steps will come. Otherwise, old trends, just they continue. All right? Tomorrow we will meet.